The founders at history part 3 and 4 may be able to just part 3 because of Windows problem. So the founders of Earth History Part 3. Greetings again, beloved creators. We are continuing our discourse on Earth history. We hope you were able to follow yesterday's lesson. It's a hard one to comprehend for most Earth souls because there are multiple energy streams happening simultaneously: evolution, devolution, and constancy at very high levels. Today, we will actually get down to the historical events of your timeline. As we and the channel have mentioned many times previously, time is fluid and not set in stone, as your rational minds would have you believe. Therefore, much of what we chronicle for you is subject to change. Although the physical events have akashic imprints and will continue to exist on one of your past timelines, you as a species have the capabilities of changing your timelines to better suit your evolution. I don't think so. We'll address that subject in greater depth at another time. This akashic record is just like a hard disk residual that stays there until you delete. We are not fond of issuing disclaimers in our communication because we want our words and ideas to stand simply as they are, without embellishment or compromise. However, it might be useful to point it out that some of the ideas presented herein will echo what has been brought forth in your mythological and religious teachings, and some of it will likely contradict the writings and teachings you are already familiar with. We are not here to convert anyone to a particular way of thinking or convince you of anything. We ask that you remain open to our viewpoint of creation, perhaps realizing that we have a broader perception than most entities that have visited your world. How's that for a modest disclaimer? But which type of entity are you in the first place? It's necessary to know. Are you the Pleiadians, the Andromedans, the Arcturians, the Luciferians? Who are you? There have been 4 major civilizations and a lot of minor ones on your planet since the grand experiment began unfolding here. First, Pangaea, to Lemuria, then the Atlantis, and fourth, the present. In addition, there have been 2 major events in your solar system that dramatically impacted the history of your world: A, the destruction of Maldek, and B, the destruction of the surface of Mars. We are simplifying the story considerably because there were numerous other events, some of which we will be going into in detail. This would include what your religion's writings call the Luciferian Rebellion, which we refer to as the Orion Invasion, the infusion of the Alpha Draconian Reptilian, the reign of the Syrians of biblical and pre-biblical times, and the quiet invasion of the Zeta Reticulis Grace. Keep in mind that these are only the major ET infusions. There were many others, including input from certain Andromedan sectors, various levels and dimensions of Pleiadian groups. Venusian and Pleiadian also includes reptilians, all here including reptilians, Venusians, Arcturians, Antareans, and others from Polaris, Alpha Centauri, and many other regions. added to this, the overseeing of your progress by the councils of Alcyone, the Great White Brotherhood, the Confederation of Light, and their offshoots, Ashtar, Solar Cross, and the many interplanetary priesthoods, Melchizedek, Metatron, and Noach. And you have quite a bowl of porridge on the cosmic stove. Well, as you say, let's get on with it. Let's start with Pangi. We briefly talked about this civilization yesterday in part 2, but let's put it into the historic timeline. The land of Pan was the pinnacle of success regarding the experimentation and interbreeding of various DNA strains. This was the paradise or Garden of Eden written about in your religious books. Most of the earth was tropical jungle during the period from 200 million to 20 million years ago. You can see evidence of this by examining the geological formation, particularly in your desert areas, for example. No wonder the tropical countries are so beautiful. It's like heaven. The barren desert area known as the Petrified Forest in northeastern Arizona was once a dense jungle. Many areas, including your favorite hotspot, Sedona, was underwater for much of the time. In other words, your world was bathed in water and dense vegetation in most areas. Even the polar regions were teeming with life. And also they claim that it was also there was blue vegetation, and that we absorb the sunlight so as to have nutrients. The humanoid form was seeded on your planet approximately 100 million years ago, right in the middle of this jungle period. There were small groups of humanoids confined to relatively small areas of your world. These humanoids were 70 density beings with wings and highly developed telepathic and psychic abilities. And they had wings, so they are known of the eyes right now. I mean, the body was not like ours. And some were translucent white. They lived in paradise. They were loving and cooperative and communicated with the exotic plant and animal life that abounded everywhere. They extracted their food directly from sunlight. You see, all that the sunlight last time was not that hot like we have today. Maybe it was about 20, 10, 15 degrees Celsius, and assimilated water through their pores. They had need of nothing but each other. The vegetation also were blue. This is a rough equivalent of what you call the Garden of Eden in your religion's writings. The life forms during that time were varied and plentiful. About 60 million years ago, the dinosaurs were killed off when the comet Arun-Hantak made its 10,500 year cycle and came too close to Earth on this particular path. The resulting cool down destroyed a large part of the vegetation. Wait a minute, they say that dinosaurs still exist in the Agartha. Okay, so they will never extinct, they live somewhere else. But the Earth, in her amazing regenerative ways, was able to bounce back. Of course, she asked for help, and another fertile period ensued. There were only a few 100,000 humanoid forms on Earth at that time. How nice! And most of them retreated underground, which is Agartha. So the hollow earth. So they are not those are the so-called Nephilims, fallen angels, on that they were here on earth, okay? And with the help of various Pleiadian factions, create a subterranean world of great beauty and intricacy. This is where the legends of the inner earth came from. We will talk about that at a later time. Most of the life forms of Japan were exotic and do not exist today. There are legends, I don't think so, there's still remnants. There are legends of a few of them, including the Pegasus and Centaur. No relation to our Centaurians, and some of the creatures were descendants of the dinosaurs and early reptiles. Oh great! The dragons got their folklore from two sources, Pangaea and the Draconian invasion. So they are what they call the indigenous of this planet. The early dragons were reptilian creatures that evolved along with the dinosaurs and were genetically manipulated by ice and other ET groups. Later, the Draconians came to Earth with their own reptilian form and began interbreeding and creating exotic dragon forms and interbreed with humans. So some of us here actually have reptilian dragon souls and ethereal bodies, but we are getting ahead of ourselves. The fall of Pangaea was the original fall from grace, as chronicled in your writings. This occurred when the sons of God, the 70 deities Pleiadians, incarnated into the humanoid forms, evolved on earth and forgot their divine connection. The humanoid form before the incarnation of the 70 deities Pleiadians had a rudimentary consciousness somewhere between second and third density. Your evolutionary scientists see the change brought about by the Pleiadian incarnations as an unexplained mutation that marks the difference between apes and humans. So you want to say that humans were the apes and Pleiadians the humans, is it? I don't think so, I'm so sorry. The incarnated Pleiadian humans interbreed with the various creatures, hence the half horse, half man, and many others. The fairy kingdom was one of the offshoots of this interbreeding. 70 deities souls took on a humanoid form that had wings when they interbred with the four-legged creatures. One of the results was the Pegasus or winged horse. As the humanoid Pleiadian souls dropped in vibration, their wings became atrophied along with their telepathic and other abilities. So they lost all these abilities. They became more and more like the creatures involved on Earth, more animalistic in nature and less able to formulate high intellectual reasoning abilities. And many of us here also are Pleiadians. Okay. All this continued until approximately 10 million years ago, when the end of the cosmic cycle occurred and the electromagnetic polarity shifted. At the time, great storms raged across the earth as a result of the change in EM frequencies. A flood wiped out most of the creatures residing on Earth. This is referred to in your religion writings as the Great Flood. It did not, I don't think it affected Earth. At the time, most of the earth became covered in water. Most, not all, most. With a few remnants of land, and life remained here and there.